How's it going, folks? Mark, Ricky, back with another music matchup, and this is one that you suggested, Ricky. So I am going to
Yes, Mark.
Are you doing the robotic stuff?
Maybe. No. Hey.
So I'm going to let you set this one up. So what are we comparing today?
We are going to listen to these two bands that are extremely influential in music, all different types of genres. And this is Kraftwerk or Kraftwerk.
Okay.
From Germany. And they have a lot of stuff, but this is my favorite song of theirs, which is called Der Roboter, or Robots, from 1978, I believe.
Wow.
We're going to compare it to Yellow Magic Orchestra, which is an electronic band from Japan who had a lot of different things out. This is from 1979, I believe. It's called Rydeen, which probably the most famous song is called Firecracker, but there's not really a music video, so there's a music video of this one.
Okay.
So these two bands from Germany and Japan,
Yep.
around 78, 79, doing electronic music. I thought we could kind of compare them and see, are there similarities, differences?
I'm excited about this. And is this something that you actually use in classes, or?
Sometimes these are bands that I like, I've been listening to for a long time. Very influential in all kinds of styles of music. So, yes, I do make my students listen to both of these groups.
We're about to get a lesson, folks.
You
School's
are
in.
going to get a lesson.
That's right. Ring the bell, suckers. Well, I'm going to have a beer because, in the interest of full disclosure, we had hell getting stuff hooked up, and I screwed things up. So,
but then you fixed it, so you deserve a beer.
Well, let's hope so. So I'm going to do. This is a Stone Brewing Tangerine and Pineapple IPA.
Beautiful.
Cheers, and
Salud.
cheers, folks. Let's do this. Who do you want to start with, Ricky? Kraftwerk?
Nothing like comparing German and Japanese electronic music with a can of beer that's got the American flag on it.
That's why I did it.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of a nationalistic type thing.
Sure. So you choose. It's whichever one you want.
Okay, let's go Kraftwerk. It's on my left, so we'll start left to right.
Kraftwerk.
Here we go. So, Ricky, I'm loving this so far. It sounds very Max Headroom-ish.
It could be that as well. Yeah. You have to realize this is 1978. So what were computers and synthesizers like at that time?
Gigantic, I would
Yeah,
imagine.
it was very complicated to do this kind of stuff.
So, obviously, I'm familiar with computers from like 84 on up. But
Sure.
before that, I mean, we're essentially talking mainframes. There were personal computers back then, but they're few and far between. So, kind of take us back in time. How would they be creating these sounds? Is it on a frame?
It's on a synthesizer, and then you have to have them all synced, sometimes going through a computer. You have to realize these computers would have like a huge hard drive, 4 megabytes. You know, it's like the size and the speed and
Right.
everything was really slow. So a lot of it's to kind of get everything in sync. And
Wow.
to get the different circuits do different sounds. Some people would argue, I think The Guardian has listed Kraftwerk as being the most influential band ever. Like
Really?
more influential than the Beatles. And people that have said Kraftwerk influenced them have included Iggy Pop, David Bowie, Kanye West, and their music has been sampled by Nine Inch Nails, R.E.M., Madonna. I think if you look at the overall, I mean, the Beatles are very influential, but overall music, all kinds of genres, Kraftwerk. And as a matter of fact, I think they were strongly influential in Planet Rock, which some consider to be the first hip-hop record.
Oh, my goodness.
So electronic German musicians that were strong, influential people in hip-hop.
Wow.
Vocoder.
Charging our battery, and now we're full of energy. We are the robots. We are the robots. We are the robots. We are the robots.
So a vocoder is like a primitive auto-tune where you have a carrier wave and then you put a wave on top of it, and they often would use the voice and put it through synthesized sounds. And it was very unusual at this time. People weren't sure how these kinds of sounds were used.
How hard would this have been to do back then?
It would have been pretty complicated, and the machines were big and clunky. And
So what are these guys' backgrounds? Like, where did they come from? How did they know to do this?
a lot of it was them just experimenting. They did some like experimental kind of fusion rock stuff and all that, but a lot of the history of Kraftwerk is this is a German band, right? That these guys are probably born in the 50s or so. And Germany was trying to...
So post-World War II.
Yeah, they're trying to get out of that World War II identity, and they were trying to do something so outside of the box that was very German, very industrial. They were talking about how like they grew up around factories, around all this, and they wanted this kind of like synthetic type of sound, which, you know, everyone was like, oh my gosh, what are these guys doing? You have to realize this is in the 70s. People didn't hear stuff. Now you hear it and you think, oh, it sounds like hip-hop, it sounds like techno.
Yeah.
There was none of that at that time.
So this would, it's 1970, so we're talking like as far as like rock music and things like that, we're talking about Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin.
And I think in Germany it was a lot of like, they were kind of mimicking Mamas and Papas and psychedelic
I see.
type of stuff, you know, and Birds and...
Well, let's go to YMO. So
YMO, Yellow Magic Orchestra.
Yellow Magic Orchestra.
This is around the same time.
Okay, but from Japan.
From Japan.
Again, post-World War II.
Post-World War II. And you have to realize, keep this in mind, there was no internet, so
Yeah.
Kraftwerk didn't release something and then 2 hours later everyone tweeted about it. It didn't work that way.
Right.
So anyway.
It would have taken probably months and months for this to kind of matriculate through everything. All right, so Yellow Magic Orchestra, Rydeen.
Rydeen.
I'm going to say right off the bat, this feels more familiar to me.
Okay.
And maybe it's because of video games and stuff like that, but I feel like this is like 8-bit, 16-bit type music.
It's interesting you say video game because Yellow Magic Orchestra is a huge influencer of video game music. And as a matter of fact, I should know them, I don't. The only one I know is actually, I think, the person we paused on, who is Ryuichi Sakamoto, who now is kind of like an experimental composer. He's done a lot of film scores. He did The Revenant.
Oh, wow.
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
He does a lot of stuff with a European sound artist named Alva Noto. You should check them out. They do really cool stuff. But one of the other synthesizer people actually did a record of video game music when there was no word. So when they labeled it as video game music, the record company was like, what are you talking? There's no such thing.
Right.
So yes, they were strongly influential in video game music. Wow. And most video game composers from the 80s and 90s, and even today, talk about how Yellow Magic Orchestra was a huge influence.
Wow.
Some have considered Yellow Magic Orchestra, basically in Japan, they were more influential than the Beatles. They come up again, but they're a very influential band in Japan. Everyone knows YMO.
Well, I'm hearing like, you know, those, I mean, obviously you do video game music and stuff, but like the Castlevania music and Ghosts and Goblins and like some of those old 8-bit going on to 16-bit scores, it sounds very familiar.
Very much. Dig those graphics.
Yeah. And you know, one of the things that's occurring to me, and this is post World War II music. These are people whose parents probably fought in World War II. Mm-hmm. And I can imagine they're wanting to create a future that's wholly different than what they experienced. I remember when I did the Scorpions' Wind of Change.
Oh, yeah.
So you can watch that over here, you guys. I did a lot of research on that one. And one of the things that Klaus Meine said was that when Scorpions kind of formed, one of the things they wanted to do, they wanted to make sure they sang in English because they wanted to leave behind World War II, and they wanted to look towards the future. I have to imagine that these bands are probably pretty similar to Klaus Meine and the guys in Scorpions, and they were wanting to do something different, wanting to kind of untether themselves from the history that they didn't necessarily support.
Yeah, yeah.
And this sounds so futuristic, and I have to imagine in the 70s, this would have been like, what? Is this Tron? What is this?
Very, because of the instruments and everything, and you have to remember, Japan, am I fair to say, is the only country that's ever have a couple of cities nuked. You know, they had.
Yeah.
But they are combining some Japanese. So I do have my scent. Woo, good.
There we go. It's hot.
But they're combining what we consider to be the major scale, which is Western music, with the pentatonic scale, which is very Japanese-like. So they're combining both of those elements. So it does sound, people hear it and they say, oh, this makes me think of like Japanese pop or something. They're using Japanese scales.
That's amazing. So the normal scale works through the notes, but the pentatonic is 5 notes that repeat.
It's 5 notes. You leave out a few notes here and there.
Right, but the first 2 things are repetition, right?
Yeah, it could be, yeah.
Gotcha. Oh. So that right there feels like I'm working to the end boss.
Yeah.
It feels like I'm
getting there.
Yeah, I'm collecting all the collectibles. I'm building up my mana. I'm going to go get them.
Look at those 8-bit graphics.
I miss this stuff. I know you do too. Oh God, it just hits me right in the heart. Makes me feel like a kid again.
There's Richie.
Ryuichi
Sakamoto.
Is he still around?
He's still around. He's still working.
Oh.
He's a composer that I love. I started listening to him doing his classical stuff before I got familiar with Yellow Magic Orchestra.
Wow. So you knew him before you knew this band.
Doing all of his experimental stuff, which is very much different than this. He has a classical background.
Wow.
And I should say something about
classical Western. Sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The drummer, who I think might go by the name of Harry. I'm sorry if I got it wrong, but when they do live, I think they have a drum track, but he plays with it and adds stuff. So he still plays the drums. A lot of people say the percussion sounds very programmed, which it kind of is, but he still plays. And he's a phenomenal drummer.
So I know in Japan, like the drumming is taiko, that type of drumming.
Oh, the big...
the chord, so he's doing more Western style.
Yes,
is this like jazz?
No, it's kind of, it is maybe, or kind of pop.
Pop, okay.
You know, type of thing. And
wow. All right, let's go back to Kraftwerk.
Kraftwerk.
Yeah.
Dita.
Your function automatic, and we are dancing mechanic. We are the robots. We are the robots. We are the robots. We are the robots. Я твой слуга, я твой работник.
They're talking about batteries and stuff.
Я твой.
So that sound right there is amazing. Let me go back.
Я твой слуга, я твой работник.
That whoop, whoop.
Yes.
Oh, that's a synthesizer.
Я твой.
That is awesome.
I don't have it set up. I can't.
So they're bending the tones then.
Yeah, you know. Whatever, something like that.
Gosh.
Я твой работник.
This reminds me of, we were in Prague, not in Germany, but in Prague, and there was like this steampunk bar that apparently had been around for decades, since the 80s, and they just had like old CRTs on the wall and like old hard drives taken apart and stuff like that. It reminds me of that. It was such a cool aesthetic.
We are programmed just to do anything you want us to. We are the robots. We are the robots. We are the robots. We are the robots. Я твой слуга. Я твой раб.
So look at this. Pause it. They're turning, but then there's like kind of a robot that looks like them.
Oh, I didn't see
And
that.
they did do a tour, a couple of tours, and there's one they're infamous for that they like went on holiday. So they did the tour and they commissioned people to build robots of them to pretend like they were playing.
That's
and nobody
amazing.
cared. And that's part of their gig now is they show up and they do. And you know, who is it that also does stuff like robots? You know, Daft Punk or these like. All that influence is there. So yeah, it's it shows them turning and you see the robot.
And it's hard not to think of Tron.
Oh, of course.
Because I feel like, what was it, 78 when Tron came out? Around
Something like
around
that,
time
yeah.
period. It feels very Tronish.
Yeah.
I feel like the people that were working on that had to have been influenced by stuff
They
like
probably were. That composer is Wendy Carlos,
that. Oh.
who did a lot of Stanley Kubrick stuff like The Shining and Full Metal Jacket and that kind of stuff.
Oh my God.
She's great. She's
Folks, you're getting a music lesson for free.
There you go.
How do you feel about that? Free!
see here's him. Here's the robot.
Я твой слуга. Я твой работник.
Robot.
Oh my God. I'm going to go ahead and say Ricky. I don't care for that. It's freaky. I don't
kinda
like
freaky.
it. I feel like it's going to kill me. Immediately, I feel like it's going to kill me.
And this tells you how musically sophisticated they are. Is this tune is in D minor, which usually has a B flat major chord, but they're doing a B flat minor chord. They're like changing some of the harmonies and adding some stuff in there, which I think gives it a kind of edge. It sounds very German to me, whereas YMA sounds very Japanese to me. It's,
All right,
and it's
so
the same instruments.
I'm going to stop you there. How do you define sounding German versus sounding Japanese?
It's like kind of that edgy. I'm trying to think. Kind of. It's almost like looking. It's a difference between looking at it like a very structured. I don't want to say cold building, very steel, very Bauhaus.
Yep.
Whereas the Japanese is like looking at kind of a temple. You know?
So
But it's all synthesizers.
a little more flowing.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Wow. All right, let's finish up with YMO. This is video game music.
Oh, very much.
So I'm going to go ahead and say, like, the Kraftwerk, that feels like cyberpunk to me. Like that steampunk, cyberpunk kind of mixture. Whereas YMO feels like anime.
Yeah. That's fair to say. Very much. What's going on?
I feel like I just upgraded my weapon.
I know.
I just got the upgrade.
You got the BFG.
That's right! The new whip.
Counterpoint.
Nope. You gotta explain that. What does that mean?
That's where you have multiple musical melodies or lines at the same time and they kind of fit. So you got the da 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 and then you got the da, 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 and they're together.
And that's a counterpoint.
That's called counterpoint.
Gotcha.
Bach was very good at it. This is pretty good too.
Oh, wow. We are learning so much today, LML. We are learning so much. This is the first episode where I think Mr. Ricky is teaching us. Woo!
Ooh, let me have a swig of my beer.
Can't do that in the classroom.
Smart game.
Hey. Wow. That was awesome. Oh, I'm going to stop there.
Ooh, goodness.
That was awesome.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And, you know, I always try to tell my students, you don't have to like everything you hear. I'm sure most of our viewers probably wouldn't listen to this while they're, you know, lifting weights or something. Who knows? But you can hear the influence and maybe you kind of appreciate it. And I love both of these bands. They're amazing. I listen to them all the time. As a matter of fact, a few years ago, my son and I were camping. And I had my Bluetooth speaker. And I remember my 12-year-old son looking over and saying, "Hey, Dad, put on some Kraftwerk." So we're listening to
Oh my
Kraftwerk. We're sitting at the
gosh.
lake fishing.
What a proud dad you must have been.
I love both of these bands. You should check them out. They're great.
So I have to say, what it makes me think of is that Kraftwerk makes me think of, I'm going to talk in literary terms now.
Please do.
It makes me think in terms of like the liminal figure, the figure that's outside of the norm.
Okay.
Trying to subvert the norms of the middle.
Yes.
Whereas YMO seems like trying to craft a new future to bring all of us into it. I don't know if that makes sense, but to me it feels like Kraftwerk is subversive. They're trying to destroy the status quo.
Yeah.
Whereas YMO feels like they're trying to create a new status quo.
I think that's a great, interesting point.
This was awesome, man.
Yeah.
I had no idea about either one of these bands. And are they even bands? Do you even call them that?
Oh, yeah, of course. And they're both, I don't know if YMO, I think they have a reunion every once in a while, but Kraftwerk's on tour. I think they just went through Austin.
Why didn't you tell me?
So they still, and I should also say that they both influenced each other. So this idea of, they hated each other, they influenced each other a lot. They talk about each other's.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed this one. Let us know in the comments what you think. And I'm going to let us, we're going to end this in a different way. I'm going to let Ricky play us some music as we end this episode. So enjoy this, folks. I didn't tell him about this beforehand. Ricky, play us an outro.